All right, let's get to a little local politics here. Let's go to Virginia Beach, down south side in Virginia. We've got a sheriff's race. Sheriff's races are like the World Series of politics in Virginia. I mean, somebody told me that when I first got here. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting state because you got an election every year, House of Delegates, state Senate, governor, this, that, Senate, presidential. It's fun. You always got elections going on. And someone said to me, he worked for Tommy Normant. He's now at the Republican Governors Association. I'll mention his name a little bit later. Young fella, very smart. And he said to me, John, let me explain Virginia. All you said is right, but sheriff's races are the World Series of Virginia politics. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. All they do is manage a jail. He's like, no, you don't get it. Their people see them as the last bastion of freedom because they're elected by the people. They're not part of the federal government. They're not part of the police department. And they're law enforcement officials responsible only to the people. And I'm like, hey, I never thought about that. So he said that's kind of the Virginia way. So there you have it. In studio, joining us now is John Bell. And John Bell is running for Virginia Beach Sheriff. Well, he's going to have to knock off a political iconic family, and that would be Sheriff Ken Stoley. And the Stoleys, of course, a very powerful family. They've got Ken Stoley, and Colin Stoley is the Commonwealth's Attorney of Virginia Beach, and Chris Stoley is the head of the Appropriations Committee in the House. And then another Stoley got married, and her name is Siobhan Stoley Dunavant, and she's a very powerful state senator in Richmond. So the Stoleys all over the place. And John Bell, well, he's trying to pull an upset, and we're going to get to this race right now. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me.
So, John, you're running against an iconic family, right? I mean,
yes, I am.
Ken Stoley, everybody knows him. Everybody knows the Stoleys. And Virginia Beach has trended Republican in the last couple of races. You know, Stoley's got a lot of money. Mm-hmm. His family's powerful. Yes. How do you take him on and win? I mean, be honest.
Well, I'm running on the issues, John, and I was Deputy Chief of Police in Virginia Beach. I served the citizens of Virginia Beach for 40 years. I was a policeman in 2 years, but I guess it's running on the issues. That's what it's about, and I'm doing that. I'm just looking to break that school-to-prison pipeline. I was retired for a year and a half before the community approached me and asked me to run. I ran in 2009 as well. I know my opponent well. He and I went to the police academy together in 1976, so I'm very familiar with Ken, but I'm running for the people. I'm running for the issues.
Well, John, if when I get retired and somebody asks me to come out of retirement and run for office, you know what I'm going to say?
Go ahead.
No way, Jose. I'm staying retired, baby. There's no way I'm getting into a political race. When I'm retired, you know what? You'll have no forwarding address.
I can understand
no Facebook page. You'll never find me. You would have to scour golf courses and baseball stadiums across America to find me, John. So I appreciate you coming out of retirement. So you say it's about the issues. Okay.
It is.
Lay out some of the issues. What's your beef with Stoley?
There's no beef. I have no beef with Ken Stoley. It's a matter of the issues. And again, my last 5 years with the police department, I was deputy chief. Part of my responsibility was our community outreach. And as you know, what's going across the country now, there's a lot of distrust between law enforcement and our communities. And part of my responsibilities as deputy chief was our community outreach. And we worked to build those relationships in our communities. I went to see the sheriff's office doing the same thing. You know, he's currently got people out there cutting grass. That's not keeping people out of jails. I'm committed to interacting with our young people, having our deputies be mentors and role models to them and keep them on the straight and narrow. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and then coming up, the policemen at the 75th Precinct in Brooklyn were the ones who were my mentors and role models and kept me on the straight and narrow. And I think it's important. Prevention is a lot smarter and cheaper than incarceration. It's about money as well. And so I'm looking to have those deputies in the communities, not just stopping by a school every now and then, but in the communities, interacting with our young people, trying to break that school-to-prison pipeline. And my feeling on that issue is that who better to tell our young people what faces them behind bars, but deputies who are going to control every moment of their life. So I think we need to put the fear in them, and I think deputies can do that. And also I look at, people who are incarcerated. There are people there who are not necessarily bad people. They made bad choices. So I want to have comprehensive reentry programs so that we can prepare those folks who are getting ready to reenter society to be gainfully employed, have jobs, not re-victimize us. And to me, again, it's being smart. And if we're able to provide them with skills, training, support when they're released, where they can have jobs, take care of their families, they're a lot less likely to reoffend and re-victimize us. My opponent took office in January of 2010, and he didn't start his reentry program until August of 2014. That's 4.5 years that were lost in trying to keep some of these folks who reenter society from re-offending. And I also look at our police officers. We need to look at effective and efficient use of resources. Again, I was deputy chief of police, and there's not the greatest of relationships, unfortunately, between the police department and sheriff's office, and for various reasons. But you look at how we handle the resources. People who are currently mentally ill and need to receive treatment. Right now, it takes 2 police officers, once they get the paperwork to transport someone for treatment, it takes 2 officers to transport them. And they've had to transport them as far away as Roanoke, Virginia, Williamsburg, Petersburg. And deputies are trained to transport. So what I plan to do as the next sheriff is basically to have the police officers who have the paperwork in hand to be able to hand that paperwork and the person who needs treatment off to the deputies who can transport them and allow the officers to stay on the streets, keeping our citizens and our streets safe. And I'm also committed to, and you mentioned the family, you mentioned a few members, and you're right, there's a dynasty, if you will, and we use that in talking, but you left out a couple, and you've got his other brother who's a commissioner of accounts of Virginia Beach. You have one of his captains is the chair of the Republican Party in Virginia Beach, which is fine. And one of his other captains, he pushed out up to Richmond as House delegates, Rocky Holcomb. So it's about that partisan politics and nepotism that exists in the sheriff's office. And I believe that the sheriff's office should be nonpartisan. It shouldn't be influenced by politics. And unfortunately, right now it is. As deputy chief of police, 40 years with the police department, I didn't have the luxury or desire to get involved in partisan politics in my serving the citizens of Virginia Beach. And unfortunately, that's currently what's happening. And I know I'm monopolizing your time, but I looked at the League of Women Voters. They had us complete a survey, and they asked, should the sheriff's office be nonpartisan? It should be an elected position. And I agree that it should be elected because you shouldn't have partisan politics influencing the decisions of the sheriff's office.
It is an elected position. I mean,
yes, it is.
I mean, Ken Stoley happens to be a Republican. You're a Democrat. So to sit there and say you want it as nonpartisan, that's only because you don't have a majority of voters. If you were in the majority, you'd be, come on, John. I mean, that's just false, right?
No, I don't think so,
let's get to the issues.
Sure.
Well, sure it is, because if you were the incumbent, right, if you were the sheriff of Richmond or St. Petersburg, where you have huge Democratic majorities, and you were a Democrat, then you'd be partisan also. The people that say they don't want to be partisan running for sheriff are the people on the outside. So let's get to the issues, John.
Sure.
Let's get to the issues that matter, which you mentioned reentry. That seems to be a centerpiece of your campaign and some of the programs that you have. What you're saying, are you saying that Sheriff Stoley does not have effective reentry programs?
I'm saying that they could be improved. I'm saying that there's opportunities to have more programs to provide more training for inmates who are incarcerated, so when they reenter society, they're able to get those jobs. And again, if you're committed to something, you do it when you take office. And that's 4.5 years. I mentioned August of 2014 is when he started his reentry programs, but that could have been done from day one once he took office. And if I may, John, just to back up a little bit, when I decided to run, I wanted to run as an independent in Virginia Beach. I'm a Democrat, not ashamed of that, but I wanted to run as an independent because I wanted to show the citizens of Virginia Beach, because I'm going to serve all citizens regardless of party. And when I asked to run as a independent, I was told that I could, but I wouldn't get access to the voter list, and I had to have people I can contact. But again, it should be nonpartisan. That's my particular opinion on that. Unfortunately, Ken's running as a Republican, I'm running as a Democrat, but it's to serve all of the citizens of Virginia Beach and not one particular party.
Oh, well, that's fair enough, but it is part of the constitutional offices of Virginia Beach, along with the Commonwealth's attorney, I guess, treasurer. And so it's one of the constitutional offices, and these are partisan. That's the way the Constitution's written. You're not going to change it.
No, you're not.
And you're right. I mean, if you try to run as on the eye line, basically you can't win. You have no voter access. You can't raise any money.
You're right.
You can't get any help from the party.
Exactly.
Then the party's got to run their own candidate. And so then you finish last, so that doesn't make any sense.
And you hit the nail on the head. You mentioned someone told you that it's the last bastion, if you will, of nonpartisan offices where the citizens make a decision.
Yes, right.
And it should be all the citizens making that decision, and they should vote for someone who basically is going to serve all of the citizens. That office is a public safety office. the sheriff's office is a public safety organization, and my position is should be run by a career public safety administrator and not a career politician. For 40 years, I didn't decide to leave and do something else. I was committed to serving the citizens of Virginia Beach. I left Columbia University, and in my junior year is when I joined the police department in New York. And I served there for 2 years until about 5,000 of us were laid off when the city went through a financial crunch. And God works in mysterious ways. I had family in this area, and I just happened to be transferred down here. And I've been blessed to have had a very long career in Virginia Beach. But again, in my career in the city of Virginia Beach, I didn't have a desire to let partisan politics influence me. And if you look, and be real about it, if we look at the sheriff's office in Virginia Beach now, it's being used as a bastion, if you will, of partisan politics. And I think that shouldn't be. The citizens shouldn't have someone making decisions based on party.
Okay, so your credentials are solid. You're a member of New York's finest. I grew up in northern New Jersey, worked in New York, went to college there. So
I won't hold it against you.
I'm kind of a New Yorker. I know. So I just got to ask you this question.
Sure.
Right? You're from Brooklyn.
Right.
Mets or Yankees?
Mets. I'm sorry. Mets. I live very close. You know where Queens is, so it's very close to where I lived. And I had a cousin who was a policeman as well. He was, again, a mentor and role model for me. He was a Yankees fan, so coming up, he tried to influence me and have me become a Yankees fan, but I fought it, and I stayed as a Mets fan.
Giants, Jets.
Giants, all the way. And I'm very disgusted after what happened on Sunday. Final second?
That game was ridiculous. Well, 3 times they had the ball. They had the ball third and goal on the 1-inch line. 2 plays, couldn't get in. Then they had 4th and a foot on the 7, couldn't get in. Then they get a pick 6 return. It's just a comedy of errors.
Thanks for reminding me.
Giants never should have lost that game. Now their season's over. No team that's started off 0-3 has ever made the playoffs. So the season's over. I'm sorry.
It's still my Giants. I'm sorry.
Meantime, the Jets did win a game, and I remember the first football game my father took me to was a New York Giants and the Oilers when they played in the old Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
And we were big Oilers fans, so Giants won big. But going to Yankee Stadium and seeing a football game, that's not like it is today. It's very different, John. Okay, so I get your credentials, right? They're there. You want the people of Virginia Beach to fire Ken Stolley hire you.
I'm not saying they need to fire him.
You want them to fire him because you want to beat him.
Well, I'm not saying – I don't look at it as being fired. I just think it's time to have new blood in the sheriff's office. I don't look at it as being fired. It's not that. I just look at taking that organization to the next level of excellence. It's a good organization, great people there. They've done some good things. When I ran in 2009, and 2 of the things that I ran on was, increasing electronic monitoring, for example, for inmates, those who are nonviolent, who can be able to go back to their jobs and not lose them. And at that time, my opponent, he's a politician. I'm not. I'm a career public safety administrator. And he attacked me on wanting to do that. And once he took office, he stopped their program altogether. And then I guess about 5 years later, he started a program, which is electronic monitoring with ankle braces, and touted it as a great idea, and it was, and I wish I had thought about it. I'm sorry I did. But, he didn't use that originally, and it could have been done. So we're trying to reduce the number of people who are incarcerated, so that's one thing. And also I looked at increasing the treatment for those who are mentally ill, and I have to give credit where credit's due. Once he took office, he saw the light, and he's increased the treatment of inmates who are mentally ill, which is a large number, by the way. So I give him credit for that. But, you need to do the right thing for the right reason and the right time. And unfortunately, he's a politician, and he tells people what they want to hear. And I'll give you another example. I was a liaison to the Human Rights Commission in Virginia Beach while with the police department, and I happened to run into one of the commissioners on the Human Rights Commission, and he told me that he was very disappointed because when asked in June to appoint an LGBT liaison from the sheriff's office to that community, he refused. And the person asked me to take a look at the minutes of the June Human Rights Commission meeting, which I did. And in the minutes, a gentleman by the name of Michael Berlucci asked the sheriff to appoint a liaison, which he refused to do. And I told Mr. Berlucci, as well as the chair of the Virginia Beach Human Rights Commission, that would be one of the first things I would do because I believe that community needs to be represented. Well, how politics works, about a week later after I told them that I would make that one of the first things I did, my opponent appointed a liaison. Well, if it was the right thing to do, it should have been done in June when he was asked. It was kind of a no-brainer, and it wouldn't take any extra resources. So I'm not a politician, so I don't claim that to be the case. I'm a career public safety administrator. And again, that partisan politics and nepotism should be taken out of the sheriff's office. And if you don't mind, John, I'll give you another example. That office, you need to have people with experience and skills, people who know how to run the organization, running the organization. Positions shouldn't be appointed by friendship, by nepotism, cronyism. And the second in command of the sheriff's office of Virginia Beach just happens to be the former partner of my opponent who worked narcotics with him, a person he was a detective. He never reached the rank of a supervisor. How can you take someone who doesn't have that experience, administrative experience, and place him in a position so vital to the sheriff's office over people who have been with that organization for years and place him in charge just because he happens to be a friend of the sheriff? So again, that's that partisan politics and nepotism.
All right, so look, let's get back to what I said. You've got the experience, and you'd like to replace Sheriff Ken Stolle, and you think you would take partisanship out of it and focus on outreach and focus on the things that you talked about in
serving the citizens, right?
And serving the citizens in a little bit of a different way. You're a big underdog in this race. Stolle's a very powerful man.
No question.
No question about it. And he comes from a powerful family,
yes,
and they've got a big network.
Yes.
Whether or not the people of Virginia Beach see these as issues worth changing, I don't know. But we'll continue to follow this race. You're certainly, John Bell, very well qualified, no doubt. Hey, let me end on this note because we talked about the Giants and the Jets so that everyone knows. I'm not a Jets fan, so I'm just saying this. But just so everyone knows, over this whole kneeling with the anthem thing, the only team in the NFL that has never had one player not stand up during the national anthem, not one time, including last weekend, Gang Green, New York Jets stand alone as the only team to do that. And being so close to the World Trade Center where they play, obviously the Meadowlands, you would think that probably makes sense. But the New York Jets do stand alone in this. And even Dallas took a knee last evening, and that was the end of my wife. She split, pissed off at that. John Bell, we're out of time. People want more information. Where do you go?
They can go to our website at www.johnbellforsheriff, or they can visit us on Facebook, which is John Bell for Sheriff. But, John, I thank you very much for allowing me to come on your show and just have a conversation with you.
Hey, you know what? It all starts, John Bell, with a conversation. You're certainly well qualified, and I respect you coming out of retirement and doing what you think is right.